There's a study that just came out, which I think, there's a lot of research on infants' memories. Neuroscientists are doing research on whether infants remember things, and of course they remember things that we just don't have conscious. It goes into a vault, and we don't have conscious access to what we learn and what we explore and what we're exposed to in the first 3 years. But it basically forms the foundation of our personality going forward. So if children don't have attachment security and don't have their primary attachment figure very present for them in the first 3 years for most of the time, it shapes their personality. It shapes it so they often develop attachment disorders. It shapes it so they don't trust in relationships in the future, or they're anxious about relationships in the future. And so, yeah, these are inconvenient truths because they go against the modern narrative that you can do everything all at the same time.
So you can't have it all.
You can have it all in life, but not all at the same time.
Right.
And then it requires sacrifice.
Yeah.
That you have to, in New York City where I live, we take our shoes off at the door because it's dirty outside. I'm sure you do in London too. But the idea that we take our ambitions and our narcissism and we leave it at the door when we have children, and we focus on our children and their needs, and we sacrifice some of our own needs in those years that they need us most. But throughout their childhood, for the full 18 years, we're having to sacrifice. And I think the modern narrative is you can have children but not have to sacrifice anything, and nothing changes, and you don't have to give anything up. And I just think that we're lying to young people. In fact, to raise healthy children, it requires a great deal of sacrifice and a great deal of frustration and a great deal of discomfort. But again, I say this also saying you can have it all in life. Life is long. What I say is some of the most productive years for women are perimenopausal and postmenopausal years. That's when women really gear up and have a lot of energy to do something out in the world because they're also not conflicted about having babies, about being with their babies. They're really less conflicted. And so now we just have to get women on board that they don't have to be so paranoid, persecuted about doing it all, when they're very young, or they're going to miss some train. And then get men on board with the idea that when their wives and partners are ready to gear up in their lives, men may be gearing down, but they have to support their women to, if you want to be a CEO and all those things as a woman and, have a fabulous career, then you need your man supporting you instead of saying, yeah, let's move to Florida and play golf, because women are really ready to kind of go in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And so that leaves your 20s and 30s and even your 40s sometimes to because everything's pushed forward. Yeah,
that's super interesting. And I was just thinking about my retirement in Florida out the window. Retirement on the golf course. I can't see myself retiring.
I'm using it as a kind of euphemism because it's such a silly one. But yes, a lot of people, men are winding down in their 50s. Arthur Brooks talks about that. He has this paradigm where you wind down in your 50s. And women aren't winding down in their 50s because they've been working, if they're focusing on raising children, they're winding up their careers and wanting to give. So they've been giving to their families for the first, 10 or 20 years. And now they're wanting to give to the world. And so that's their time. But anyway, it's a different paradigm. And I think we're not talking about it.